we unfortunately in the medical community, that's a lot of what medical medicine's about, is dealing with symptoms. Whereas we know that the best thing is to deal with the root causes, and we then have a better chance of having healing occur, including accommodating the body to heal. Just like with stress, we're designed to be able to deal with the stress. We just have to identify where it's coming from, and then how to apply the right, as Anton says, the right tools there.
Mhm. And I'm seeing a lot of comments about breath and things like that, and that leads into the next pillar of health, which is physiology. It's our internal health. It's our blood sugar regulation. And here's a quick one, just to kind of understand why that matters. The same chemical that is used to manage your stress, cortisol, is also used to regulate your blood sugar. So imagine if you're eating candy all the time, or these highly processed sugary foods, and your body's having to dump that chemical in response to regulate your blood sugar. It's insulin ultimately that does it, but stress response cortisol ultimately regulates insulin because it regulates our energy stores. And that is something that we don't think about. We don't think about how constantly eating a bunch of bad processed foods, sugary foods, and things like that is the same as our boss yelling in our ear. The same chemicals reactions are occurring, maybe in different capacities, but when it's chronic, it does become a big problem. I like the breath comments in there because that's something that we can control with our physiology.
Yeah.
We are meant to be deep belly breathers, right? Down here with our diaphragm. But when we're stressed, a lot of people, worry about their belly, how we look. We end up breathing up here in the chest. This function itself is stressful on the body because when we're chest breathing, we're activating our sympathetic nervous system, which is our go system. So just by breathing wrong, we're constantly keeping our body in that go reactive state, like we're running from a lion. So, Sharon was talking about Hawk telling her to do some breathing stuff. That's absolutely true. We're resetting, we're getting more parasympathetic, we're getting our body time to recover.
Well, and what's really great, and this is the beauty of the live stream and our participants, is the fact that we are, even as we go through this process, we're reaching out to each other, and that's another tool to do, is to rely on our family, our friends, to support us and help us to even recognize the stress and offer ways to maybe address it at a given moment. And Jeremy, by the way, Hawk is commenting, but he made it clear that he stopped. So don't drive and text. Thanks for reminding us of that, Hawk. That's another stressful thing, driving and texting, that can hurt us. So Jeremy comments, the tool that I learned to overcome stress is meditate and breathe, and meditation is a great tool in that. Also, prayer, and something that we talk about as a way to address some of these. So,
But at the same time, I've also seen people try to say meditation is a one-stop, solution. And I'm like,
no,
it does help immensely, but if you are in flow, just keep coming back to that bucket analogy. If your inflow is bigger than what meditation can take out, you're still going to have issues. You're still going to eventually burn out. Those things are still going to happen. So we want to make sure that we are matching the outflow of water, the things that we're doing, including meditation, with the inflow, and reducing the inflow when possible. The next one is going to be the last two for health are nourishment and movement. I already talked about internal health, but our body needs building blocks. Our body needs certain nutrients to be at its best. Water is one of the leading causes of stress. Dehydration is one of the leading causes of stress today, folks. Literally just sitting here with a 40-ounce bottle next to me. Kevin's drinking his coffee, not quite the same, but
it's tea actually. But
okay, yeah, there we go. Good, so that's better. But the point is that that's one of the biggest things. Try to drink a gallon of water a day, and you'd see how much better you feel just from some simple changes like that. And then movement. Our body is designed to move. If we're always sitting, our body basically starts to create injuries, starts to create aches and pains, and those aches and pains constantly wear on our mind and wear on our body, and it creates stress.
one of the stress relievers, and again, this one is kind of mental and physiological in nature, and that's from Rick talking about fishing with his grandsons. Um, that again, just an activity that helps us slow down, redirect our mental focus, as well as it helps us to physically move, but not over stress. So yeah, I think that's a great tip, especially having grandchildren now. I like the idea of something I need to consider getting out and dusting off the fishing pole even.
And that one leads perfectly into the next, major pillar is
Mm,
that's going to be life, right? There is relationships, there's life design, there's legacy, and there's identity as the four core pillars under there, right? So that would be under the relationship pillar, making sure that we're finding that time to get out, spend time with our relationships, but also disconnecting, and maybe even that one is like a dual prong one because you're disconnecting from the world, you're out in
mm,
nature, so it's almost meditative in itself while you're building relationships, while you're getting love poured into you from your grandson. And that's a great one. So one that I often talk about and we haven't mentioned yet is our identity, right?
mm,
It's when people struggle with their sense of self and defining who they are. It's a massive thought creator, right? It's a
mhm,
massive doubt creator that's sitting in the back of our head very silently. We don't consider how our struggles with our own identity are a massive stressor on our every single day life, whether it be because we're people pleasing, whether it be because we can't set boundaries, whether it be because we have a poor mindset, we don't have a vision, our internal messaging is off. All those are different questions that we ask in this assessment. So folks, just take the assessment. It's 60 questions. We first start with a 12 one, the basic one, and then at the end it says, okay, go to this assessment, take the full assessment. It's 60 questions. It's deep because it has to be, because as we talked about, there's so many different sources.
Well, and it was real interesting as we went through this process. We spent several months working on this, didn't we, Anton?
Hmm.
Yeah, and because we wanted to truly understand what was the roots here, and the last one that Anton's talking about, life, is probably the one that is most overlooked of all of them. We look at work and we look at physiological and some things like that, but the life area is one that is not always in our face, but it's always churning in the background. Um, we talk about regrets. One of the areas that we deal with in life has to do with legacy, and we're especially at this point in my life, I'm going, okay, I'm towards the latter part of my life. What am I leaving behind? Am I leaving well, we all leave some kind of legacy, good or bad, and am I leaving a legacy that is good? And so looking at these different areas in life can really be a huge factor in removing that undercurrent stress that we're not typically considering. And let's see, Hawk makes a comment that, yeah, we, was it the old saying, doctors heal thyself? Yeah, quite often coaches, therapists forget that they've got to take their own medicine, so to speak. And let's see here. Yeah, well, Hawk talks about singing a lot, and yeah, if I'm by myself, that's a good one. I just have to be careful not to do that in front of other people because it's not necessarily pleasant for them. But I get it, Hawk. Yeah, singing along in the radio with the radio, or uh, some of us sing in the shower. Yeah, but that's another exercise to help relieve some of our stress. So, Anton.
One we haven't mentioned that is often brought up, I'm surprised nobody's mentioned yet, but finances.
Mm,
Finances are a massive source of stress, but I think financial stress is a symptom again, right? It's a symptom of poor life design.
mm,
It's not now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes people truly don't have enough. And our audience is global and we fully understand that me and Kevin live in the United States, one of the most privileged countries out there when it comes down to comfort of living.
mm,
There's people who in every single person that has a house, whether it be their own or they're renting it, is top 1% of population in the world when it comes down to riches because of basic necessities that we have. But at the same time, I come back to finances and I say, especially if we're living in one of these countries that are as well off, if we're having financial troubles, it's most likely because we haven't created the proper life design. It's not more money that's going to solve that.
Mm.
It's really coming up with a life plan. It's figuring out, how do I have financial security and have more of a longer runway with that, even on a shorter, smaller income compared to some others. It's making sure that I'm including, family and career focus and having plans for those. And at the same time, if I am not in a good financial state in a place like we live, we can change that. We can create a plan, we can create goals, we can create objectives, and we can move forward. So I say, if people are struggling finances, we need to first go deeper and go into life design.
Yeah, and the big thing is that being intentional and aware of these things. Again, a lot of stress is coming from things that we just aren't consciously aware of. We deal with the conscious areas, but there are areas that are unconscious that are going on, and those things can create stress. That's where you get into even narratives that we're dealing with from the past that we haven't overcome. Uh, Purpose, a lot of different things that we don't think of as stressors that truly can be. And again, that's the value of going through an assessment. Is it is an outside way of looking in to help us miss some of our blind spots even. Um, so, all right, what are some of the other areas in life, Anton? I know you've hit some of them.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about relationships, life design, legacy, identity, but these are massive pillars, and there's focus points under each one of them, and that's going to be things like, your emotional intelligence, your ability to communicate with others, your ability to set boundaries, your intentionality. With legacy, it's focusing on community, it's focusing on leaving memorials and footprints, your friends, your family. It's just like when Kevin was like, read the questions, I'm like, this is going to take a really long time just to go through all of them, because we can break each one of these down so deeply. But what I'm hoping that the audience sees is how deep this concept, how deep this subject of stress management is. It's not this kumbaya, my friend, and let's just dive in. And don't get me wrong, I've been meditating since I was 12 years old. I was taught to meditate by a Buddhist monk that lived with me and my mom when my dad passed away. But I also understand that there's other sources. I also understand that not everybody's open to an Eastern practice. But then I say, great, if you're a Christian, go pray.
Mm,
Because when you pray, the way that I was taught to pray is you're in direct communication with God. There's no distractions. There's no things outside that should be coming into that space. Well, guess what meditation teaches from the Eastern practice? Clear your mind.
yeah.
Focus on the moment that you're in. Focus on the conversation, relationship with God, right? So there's very many parallels, and not coincidentally, I think, in different religions. They're there for a reason, not just to communicate with God, but also to give us relief through that communication.
It gets into design, and I know people tire of me mentioning design, but there's a principle called intelligent design, and I believe that we are intelligently designed at both physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually with purpose, and we have principles to that we can operate from to be able to function, and not just function and get by, but our ultimate design is to function abundantly and to be able to live with joy and with peace and contentment and different elements. But what we've allowed to happen is that uh, we have allowed culture to conform us rather than us forcing ourselves to not be conformed. And we are pretty open that we see the Bible as a good source of wisdom. And there's a verse that says, "Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind." And it is not there as a coincidence. That is part of that intelligent design to help us to be healthier and to function better. and just all part of it. But again, what we're after here is to, with this assessment, is to help people really do that deep dive and be that intentional in exploring. And one of the things that we do if we're going to work with a person or with a team is we're not going to do a throw uh, the whole kitchen sink, so to speak, of possibilities at somebody, because we have then added to their stress. And again, and while we're very intentional about 10%, once we can identify what is your greatest source, root cause of stress, then if we can change that 10%, it is a exponential effect on our life and on other things. And sometimes if we deal with the root cause, we can address many, many symptoms all at one time just by that 10% action. That's why we talked about that 10% process before and the value of it. Um,
Biofeedback, Sharon. Yes, that's a good one. It's creating internal awareness. Hawk said the power of introspection. All those are accurate. It's sometimes I work with people that are non-religious at all. They don't believe in Eastern medicine. They don't believe in religion at all. They're atheists. Still want to help them. Still want to be able to support them. And what's a good way to do that? I change the way they eat.
mm,
I change and I sit down and I say, I want you to count how much you chew your food. Guess what you're doing while you're counting, while you're chewing? Not thinking about the rest of the world, not thinking about everything else, just drop it into a present moment and finding a way to almost meditate, as Hawk said earlier. It depends on how you look at meditation, simply by eating. And then we can add to that behavior, because usually these are really busy professionals that say, I don't have time. I can't add more stuff. I'm like, great, let's just change one of the consistent things that you do every single day is eat. Let's just work on what we do there, create routine around that stems into everything else. So there's so many different things that we can do as long as we're intentional and we work with coaches on how to overcome a lot of these burdens.
um, and Jeremy comments about awareness. One of the first concepts we approach anyone with as we approach them, working with them from a consultative or coaching standpoint, is start with awareness. Because some people, once you make them aware of it, then they're going to take it and run with it, and they aren't going to need any more help from us. Part of what we do is when we start, our goal is to work ourselves out of a job to help people move forward. And awareness is one of the first steps, and it can make a huge difference just by having that awareness.
Shout
Um,
out to Rick, lost 20 pounds, better blood pressure. Well done, Rick. That's awesome. It
that's an
takes
outstanding.
work, and
Yeah.
but the cool part about that is you're also probably a light for other people. Other
Yeah.
people in your family, example for your grandson, where you're prioritizing health and you're doing things for others without ever realizing by doing this a little bit something for yourself. So that's awesome, man.
And
But yeah, so go ahead,
Hiram,
Jeff.
well, Hiram gets to one that I think is a real overlooked issue, and that's a sense of worth. I watch people, especially on social media, uh, that react and respond on social media because uh, they are trying to prove their self worth. And I keep trying to get people to understand that we have that value, that worth by our very creator, and it's intrinsic in who we are. And when we can truly understand that and accept it, then we can offload a lot of stress, because I watch people trying to prove themselves. Okay. We don't, in terms of worth, there's nothing more we can prove or do to make our worth any better. And there's nothing that we can do to make our worth any less. And so we got to just recognize that that value is intrinsic, and address it, accept it, so that we can, again, part of that intelligent design is that we were never intended to try to prove ourselves. That we that's just not what we're wired to do. We shouldn't be trying, but we spend a lot of time doing it at work, even, you know, and we look for our value in our work. You know, folks, I appreciate doing a good job, being excellent. I like that in myself. But at the end of the day, if I lose my job, it hasn't changed my self worth at all. And my value is still just as great without that job as it was before. And so, yeah, self worth that gets in, that's a part of that life thing. Um,
And
and
it's an
Anton,
interesting one too, Kev, because I'm just keep coming back to this point, and I will always, because that's one of the biggest things I want to create awareness around in society. That sense of lack of self worth creates stress, but that stress creates a greater lack of self worth.
mhm.
Right? It's. I don't have the diagram. Maybe next show we'll talk about our emotional response to stress and our social response to stress, but what stress does is it creates a comparison problem. When you're more stressed, you're less present. When you're less present, you're paying attention to what everybody else has got going on and how you compare to that. And an inaccurate scale, horrible scale, because oftentimes social media, we've talked about this, we're comparing people's highlight reels to our everyday life.
Mm.
And good luck having self-worth when you're doing that. But I'm telling you, your stress will make you do more of that, a lot, way more than before, because you're not present.
Well, and what's really sad about stress is that not managed, it's a vicious downward cycle. And that's what we see so many people caught up in, is they're in that downward cycle just about all the time, if not all the time. And uh, part of what we can do with this assessment even is to figure out a way to break that cycle, find something, and again, more than symptoms, putting um, putting band-aids on major injuries doesn't solve anything. We have to truly get down to what's causing the spiral down. And if we can identify it and even slow it down, we've made a process of improvement. But if we don't know what that is and we're putting band-aids on major injuries, we're in fact probably adding to the problem, because we try to do something and it's not working, and now we're stressed over that. And that's when we get into hopelessness and really in a bad spot mentally and emotionally, which feeds into our body. um, let's see. Hiram comments that social media does not equate to your personal self-esteem, but seeking validation from general public overall. And again, I really pray, I hope that enough people will begin to understand that none of those things to add or take away from our value, because that's established. Nothing we're going to do to change that value. It is done. And we can get beyond that. I think we will find we even will have more time, actually, just simply because we're not spending all that time unnecessarily.
So last one, I just want to make sure we cover, because we're going to be out of time soon. But work, right? We talk
Mm.
about life, we talked about health, and one of the more common ones that people talk about with stress is work, and it's very true. Some of it is uncontrollable because the amount of deadlines we're facing, things like that, that's going to be there. We just need to match the recovery. But the pillars that we talk about are very controllable, right? And that's going to be having servant leadership in your organization,
Mm.
not that boss mentality, but more of a servant leader. It's getting into having a good supportive culture where, there's healthy team conflict. We're finding a way to manage turnover, because think about how stressful turnover is, because somebody has to pick up the slack. That person was barely carrying on themselves. Now they have to take responsibility of somebody else. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, guess what? Now they're burnt out. Now they're leaving. So now there's two people that are gone, and it creates that domino effect that cascades down. We have performance management. And I think we talked about the stat when Verge was our guest, but 69% of companies in the world still use traditional performance management, which actually has proven and shown that it lowers performance because it actually creates so much stress. And we have to switch to agile performance management. We have to have effective one-on-one meetings. And the last one is the world that I've really spent a lot of time in is change management, is making sure that we are changing and being proactive with change, not reactive, right? Think about how much stress it creates when a competitor goes in and they adopted something and now they have a big competitive advantage. But because we were sitting around and not paying attention to innovation, now we're playing catch up. Now we're burdening our people to try to make that up because now we're reactively catching up. It's awful, and it's everywhere, and it's really hurting our culture and hurting our people.
Welcome, Richard. Didn't realize you were back there. So glad to hear from you. Richard's one of our regulars now. And one of the things that Rick comments, and I think is um, very important. He says, "Had I not left a stressful job, I wouldn't be here today." And that is one of those life choices. That's why we talk about in the assessment and consider life, because when we start looking at life and getting our priorities where they truly should be, then we are in a place to make those considerations. Yeah, that high paying job may also have a high stress level that comes with it. And by the way, it doesn't align with your life priorities. And then it multiplies our stress level in that effect, in those terms. And, and so, yeah. And one of the things we talk about, and I know sometimes it seems like we are getting into semantics, but remember, power of words, power of communication, both to others and ourselves. But we have come to a conclusion that work-life balance is really more a myth than reality, and that in order to avoid unnecessary stress and or manage stress that has to be there, is look at work-life congruence. Because at the end of the day, work is a subset of life, and we have to be able to uh, get our life priorities right, and then get our work to align with that. And when we start doing that, we are then affecting our stress levels greatly. So rather than trying to make it a balance between work and life, we have a life, and we have to then make our work congruent with what our life's about. That's why life is one of the three pillars that we really dig into, to make sure that we find that balance, or that congruence in our life. So, real important. Um, Appreciate you being here, Hawk. Have a good walk, and catch up uh, with you later. Um, but let's see here. I'm trying to keep up. You guys are making great comments. Thank you. And I'm. It's always nice to have to figure out how to keep up with you guys. So thank you for that. Um, and Sharon makes a comment that I too have had to do that for my own sanity, and she's talking about quitting a high stress or inappropriate or incorrect job that doesn't line up with our life and what we are about.
Well, I've worked, folks. I've been in health for a long time. I've studied stress for over 20 years because it killed my dad when he was 45 and I was just 8. Um, but I've seen this happen too many times that I can count on my fingers and my toes with different clients where their health was deteriorating. They're literally were getting sick all the time, all sorts of ailments. Doctors can't figure out why you're sick all the time. Why is your immune system so compromised? I've seen people develop lupus. I've seen people develop all sorts of problems just by having really stressful jobs. And the minute they quit, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, all these problems go away. Our stress chemical, when we're talking about stress, the chemical that regulates our stress is massively responsible for our immunity. It has a lot to do with it, with our ability to heal our wounds metaphorically and literally. So, I'm glad that you folks are taking charge and not allowing bad places of employment to ruin your health, which is way more important than any money.
Well, and Rick's comment, very profound. Never let a job change be just about money. Our job shouldn't be about money to start with. It should be about congruence with our life, what we're about. And that's what I see so often. You talk about regret. You watch people that have made a ton of money, people that are well known to be very rich, and they get to the end of their life and they're going, wow, I wasted so much time focused on my money and acquisition of things. And now I regret I have in the process ruined my health. I have ruined my family. I have, they start going through this. And again, we got to have money to pay the bills, no doubt. But when we align our money needs with our life purpose, our design, and all of that, the need changes. Because if we're doing what we want to do, we find ways to adjust. It may be that we may not make as much money, but we will be content with less things because of the value of being in congruence with what our life is about. And so I go back. That's why these these pillars are there. We've truly begun to understand the value of each of those pillars and looking at them as we consider stress.
It's interesting, I've been looking to switch jobs and stuff like that, and one of the things you talk about when you talk to the recruiters is the total benefit package, right? The big picture, not just the financial salary you're getting. It's what are all the things that are coming with it. But I would go beyond that and I would say, what is the total benefit package, including your life? How much free time does that job come with? How much ability to spend time with your loved ones and your family? How much time does it come with to take care of your health? Because many of us do not put a value on our free time, and we should. So when you're calculating that salary and you're going, okay, I'm making $100,000 a year, but I have very little free time. Well, guess what? There was a lot of money that was taken away in a way because you don't have that value of free time anymore. So look at it from a total benefit package, including your life benefits when you're assessing a worth of a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And fortunately, we're beginning to consider some of those and have that conversation beyond just paid time off and those kinds of things. And Sharon echoes again about the value of realignment of our work with our life and the benefit to us physically, not just mentally and emotionally. And Hiram says he's wants, I assume, Anton, I think you got an invite there to join Hiram on his next live. So you can, Hiram, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Anton, and we'll be glad to see if we can um, be a part of that. Happy to share what we have going on. So just let me know, and we'll help you get connected with Anton or myself or both. But yeah, I mean, because what we are doing, by the way, is not just about we're building a business. That's the goal, but we're not just about building a business. This is about a movement. We call it the Human SOS movement for a reason, and that we need to truly have this become a movement to be able to affect. Because if it doesn't, we're just another voice out there in the wilderness, so to speak.
And human SOS stands for humanly sustainable operational system. We see how there's a need for the world to be sustainable and to live sustainably for the planet, but we also see how society is not living sustainably. We see how the workplace is not being managed sustainably. We see how our health is not being taken care of sustainably. So we've created this assessment, but it's really just representing the system, the processes that we have to help people in those different areas find way to thrive, really, or get back to thriving if they're not thriving right now.
Richard makes a comment that while I don't want to be dramatic, I would offer suggestion that if not addressed, stress can kill you. Uh, and Anton, part of his story is, and he's shared a little bit about his dad, and that's been a big motivator in your life.
Mhm.
And I have through learning from Anton and getting perspective, really come to appreciate how powerfully how powerful good or bad stress can be, and the key is learning how to manage it well. We're not going to be stress free. That's if and if that's what we try to do, all we're doing is compounding our stress.
Mhm.
But what we've got to do is learn how to address it as we encounter it, and that's what our system is all about, is how to effectively manage the stress and we start with what is stressing you. What is your biggest stressor? That's why we work so much on this assessment, and we got input from a number of different team members along the way. So it's really got a lot of um, perspective in it to help really dig down and figure out what is the root. Let's stop treating symptoms. Let's figure out what's the root. And for some of us, it may be in the pillar of life. Others, it may be in the pillar of health, and the others, the mind. So, but identifying that becomes crucial because, we see in medicine, we start giving medication to treat one symptom, and we realize in treating that symptom, we're actually inflaming the underlying cause of it, and can even see situations where that's caused physical death to people from treating symptoms rather than dealing with root causes. So that's where we're at with it. And what we would like, okay, I put the link in the comments, and I'll put it out there again. But if you go to our website and click right, I mean, it's big as life right there on the first page, that you can take the assessment. And what we would really like, it that costs you nothing, okay? And we're not going to sell your email and spam you to death. The only people that see your email in this process is Anton and I. And we'd love to see you go out and take the assessment, share it with everybody you can, and then do the follow-up assessment. 2 reasons. 1, give us feedback. If you think that something's missing, could be improved, we'd love to know that. Second thing is, and if you do it and you have additional questions, reach out, and we're happy to give you a free session to talk about it. And then whether it's for you or your organization or both, we are happy to then talk about how we can contract together and take it forward and help you truly begin to manage the stress and to get that humanly sustainable operational system. That's our goal. We want people to be able to function in that manner going forward. So, Anton, closing thoughts?
Just take care of yourself, folks. Richard's point that it'll kill you, it will kill you. And if it won't kill you literally, it'll kill your social life, it'll kill your emotional peace, it'll kill your relationship with your higher beings that you believe in, Lord, whichever is your religion that you believe in. It'll destroy your life, but it'll do so slowly, gradually, to where you don't recognize where it's coming from. So take the assessment, figure it out, start small, think big, move fast, and you can really create a lot of change for yourself.
We're here for you. God bless. Have an amazing week. Invite you back next week, same time, and we will put out a word as to what we'll be discussing. And if you have suggestions, feel free to put those in the comments. We're open to that. And but we'll be back next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern, and love to have you there and bring somebody with you to be a part. Thanks, everybody. God bless. Have an amazing week. Bye.